financial management. This seems like a big, heavy topic for a lot of directors.
Yes, it is.
Especially those who have not been trained in accounting or trained in bookkeeping. So what software, if any, do you use to assist you with budgeting and financial matters?
Well, I actually have that I hired out for my center.
I did everything myself. I actually did my taxes myself at the end of the year. I found that there were programs out there that I could use to do that, and I came out just fine. So that's what I did. Didn't have the need for any of that. However, I think had I been any larger than I had been, I would have hired an accountant to do all of that to make sure that I was, number one, doing it right, but number two, getting all the credits that I could, because there may be credits and laws and things that I wasn't familiar with. So I think I would have done that.
We have the QuickBook program, which I highly recommend. Ours is for nonprofit, because we are a nonprofit center, and it will figure up your taxes, and it does your budget. It is a wonderful program too.
Does your payroll?
Yes, payroll, taxes, vacations that are used. So I am a firm believer in QuickBooks.
I do use QuickBooks Online because it has a payroll application and it has a kind of a budgeting bank management software, which is really great. And then I also have a CPA by my side who does my taxes yearly, but he also checks up on me and our QuickBooks, 3 or 4 times a year, just to make sure that everything is looking the way it's supposed to look.
So do you feel it's advantageous and worth the money to hire an accountant?
Absolutely, especially for your taxes. I cannot imagine doing all of this by myself, and I would not recommend it at all. You will most likely get into some federal audit issues, and I would avoid that at all costs.
Being a nonprofit center, I want to make sure that I'm accounted for. So we do hire a public accountant to do our final yearly 990 report, and that is also to make accountability for myself.
And I think the biggest key to it is staying on top of it on a monthly basis, maintaining those receipts, knowing what you've spent, knowing where it's gone, knowing who you've paid for what, and maintaining those records monthly so that they don't snowball.
So what seems to be the biggest issues with finances?
Well, of course, everybody knows money. And I guess my biggest issue is I want to make sure that my staff are paid what they deserve.
Your labor should be anywhere from like 68 to 75% of your income. It is somewhat controllable, but it is the biggest chunk of your expenses. So I think it's being creative in other areas to bring in income, such as tools for schools, applying for grants, utilizing those resources that we talked about with Smart Start and Early Head Start, partnering up with people that you know will give you financial security.
When I tell them that my center is for infants 1s and 2s, they just about blow their top. Oh, this is not going to work. You're not going to make it financially because of the staff ratio for those age groups are a lot smaller, and where these larger centers get their money is from because they could have larger ratios to teacher ratios in the older classrooms into 3 and 4-year-olds.
I think the biggest struggle is finding that balance, with being able to make it affordable and attainable for families while having quality staff. And again, this is where I think education is important, because you're going to get staff, you're going to encourage them to continue their education. They're going to be able to get things like teach scholarships and Pell Grants so that they can get that education and move farther with it. That's going to help them be able to do those things. But it's just really a tough balancing act because it's a dilemma.
It is hard to manage the staff teacher ratio, keep the tuition down for families to afford it.
Is there anything you were caught by surprise when it came to budgeting and finances?
Well, of course, we all know the surprise is the cost of things, and especially the taxes. I did not, when you make a budget, you don't incorporate all the taxes that are required, but that's the most challenging, is to make it work. But if you set a good budget and you follow it, it can be accomplished.
Insurance to me was the biggest. I knew I had to have it, but I don't believe that I knew to what extent. You know, workers' comp, content, you have liability, you have umbrella policies, and it varies based on how many employees you have. So, and that was another thing I wasn't really familiar with, is what's the percentage that I'm going to pay, you know, based on my payroll. So I learned a lot through just talking to my insurance person and figuring out, okay, well, what's that formula?
Probably in for a new awakening, I suppose, in doing this center. It's scary. It's really scary. I'll have to make personal sacrifices, I'm sure, to make sure that it runs right and things like that. But as far as budgeting and finances, and it's already been a lot of stress and pressure. And I believe I told you earlier that I have learned a new form of patience.
Good suggestions for us. So tell us about your experience with the state food program and how has that impacted your budget?
I love the state food program. It is, to me, such an important part of the program that every child is fed. Hunger is a big issue in the United States, so aside from consistency, it's just a really great program.
It definitely helps. It does help buy the groceries, because I do provide the meals for the children.
First of all, the food program makes sure that the children are provided nutritional meals. We do 3 times a day: breakfast, lunch, and an afternoon snack. And you do have to follow the requirements, but it is a nutritional meal. The food program actually purchases your food. It will help you buy your supplies. It helps pay the salary of your cook.
They have the different tiers that they pay on. So if you are in an area, it's based off of the school where you are. So if you're in an area with a school system that has a certain percentage of children that are below the poverty level, then you're going to get paid more than if you're in an area where it doesn't. When you're in a family child care home situation, if you don't qualify for that higher paid tier based on the school system, then they're going to look at the families that you serve, and then ultimately they'll look at your income to try to get you on that higher tier. If you're on the higher tier, it's really beneficial. If you're on the lower tier, it's not going to help as much. But for me, it was sort of a wash. I didn't make money off of it, but it did cover the food that I needed to buy for the children.
There's a lot more paperwork involved.
It is a lot of paperwork and a lot of record keeping, but it is a well worth program to use the food program.
Right now we're currently using Cape Fear Tutoring, and I understand there's more than one organization out there. I've been with them for 8 years and they have been super helpful. They have a large staff that can help you with any questions you may have. They're available at all times. They respond quickly. I wouldn't be able to compare the payouts to other organizations, but they make it really simple, easy, and their audits are they're very easy to go through.
It also more closely monitors what you're serving, and again, it's another tool where there's someone that's coming in who you can choose to look at as a support, or you can choose to look at it as, oh gosh, there's another person coming in. But I personally viewed everybody as a support. You know, I wanted to learn what I could from that person.
Just a reminder though, with the food program, you have to meet a 25% low income ratio. So we went 1 month without having that ratio being met, but we hopped right back on, and there was not a lot of paperwork in between, which was really nice. But a lot of people don't know you have to meet that ratio.
So tell me your experience with subsidy. What is it, and how does it help or not help with what you're doing with the Child Care Center?
Subsidy is a great thing for parents who are in need of child care. Of course, the rates are slower than our private pay rates, so you do have to make sure that's in your budget, that it's covered. Some centers charge the difference. We charge a $5 a week difference to try to make up for some of that, but it still doesn't cover it.
So their parents, it's a lower income.
Correct.
In order to qualify for subsidy.
Correct.
And so then the state or the county
The state
pays you
Correct?
their childcare wage.
Correct. We just do
Difference.
a $5 a week to try to make up a small amount of it.
Okay.
But it is a wonderful thing.